a tangled web we weave. Yeah, hello everybody. Steve here, the retired hobby tech guy, and today we're going to be talking about this right here. Yeah, retired in Korea, U.S. screws over Korean employees in immigration raid. This isn't good. This is not good. This is something that, yeah, probably you wouldn't want to do. And considering on basically all the stuff that has happened in the United States. I understand America first and taking care of your own country as an elected official. I totally get that. I totally support it. Even in Korea, elected officials are going to be taking care of Korean citizens as they should. That's just part of the game. But in my opinion, and this is my opinion, of being an American citizen and somebody who is an American expat retired in Korea, I would say that the United States screwed over Korea in this immigration raid in Georgia. And this is something that is not, it's been a long time in the making, unfortunately, but it's just seemed that it's a blind eye has been turned to the situation. And then now all of a sudden it's like, boom, it's a huge problem. So we're going to get into this. And you know what? It's totally fine to disagree with the government that you belong to or a citizen of or whatever. You have that right to have an opinion. So we're going to kind of go over the information. We'll go over some articles and talk about this, but this is going to be an interesting thing, and you'll probably see why at the very end, why I think this is a bad idea and why I think the U.S. screwed over Korean employees in the raid that happened in Georgia. So with that being said, let's jump right in. Okay, so, excuse me. Free at last, Korean workers Greek families recount ICE ordeal. So if you've been living under a rock, it ends up that ICE immigration came to a Korean manufacturing plant of EV batteries. It's a huge investment. I mean, billions of dollars have been put into this. Again, it was kind of a deal that was made even prior to the Trump administration and the Biden administration, and even before that. There's been this little problem that suddenly has now come up, and I'm very surprised that this was a thing, but we'll go over this. So anyway, a bunch of workers came back home to Korea after going through this. No one would have wanted to stay, said a returning worker. 8 days since being taken into custody during the immigration raid, 316 South Korean workers stepped foot on home soil Friday afternoon, and thumbs up gestures to crowd and bystanders wearing casual clothes and masks. Many of the returning workers were seen switching on their phones to inform their loved ones of safe arrivals. Emotional family reunions were also observed. Family members embraced each other in the airport parking lot, broke down in tears to celebrate the long-awaited reunion. Leaving the airport, one worker was spotted shouting, "Back home, free at last," holding up his arms in the air. Many thanked the bystanders, congratulating their arrival, saying that they were very happy. When asked how he felt once being taken into custody, 43-year-old Jang Young-sun, who was working as a facilities engineer at the Hyundai LG plant construction site where the raid took place, said he was taken back by the U.S. authorities' actions. We were told that a crackdown may take place in the morning, but we didn't think much of it because we hadn't had any problems with our visas. Jang told the press, who held a B1 temporary visitor visa, which also allows you to do temporary work, resided in the U.S. Suddenly, at some point, people were being taken away without any explanation. We were only made aware of what was going on after we met the lawyers and the consular officials. So that, could you imagine that? Could you make, you're going there. There's hundreds of billions of dollars that Korea is investing into the United States, and it ends up that, suddenly, what you're going to end up doing is you get taken away and you're like, what's going on? I mean, absolutely crazy. So Yeah, recalling his experience, 42-year-old Cho Young-hui, another engineer, told press he felt his basic rights were not guaranteed. The difficult part of staying was the food and the fact that there was no privacy guaranteed. Two people were using one room together and the toilet was right next to where they were sleeping. Having to use the bathroom in an open space like that felt like a violation of basic rights. Yeah, I can get that, but then again, it's an ICE detention facility. I mean, there's prisons in the United States and around the world where people would love to have a room with only two inmates. A lot of times you have rooms with multiple inmates, and yeah, there's a toilet there, but it is what it is. And we're not talking five-star resorts, we're talking about a detention facility. So again, you're not going to have a ton of money to invest in individual suites at these facilities. So it is what it is. But I understand, for somebody that hasn't been in the military or hasn't been in corrections or in law enforcement, or detain people or things like that, I totally get it. It's totally foreign to them, and so it's kind of jarring of being able to, there's a guy going to the bathroom next to me if you've never experienced that before in your life. So I can understand how jarring that is. But having to use the bathroom in an open space felt like a violation. But over time, Cho added, the ICE officials' attitude toward the Koreans softened. This is interesting. Initially, they were forceful and treated us like criminals. But as time went on, it felt like they were starting to realize maybe this isn't right. And it probably wasn't right. And they, the ICE people, the officers had, detention people have nothing to do with that. They're given orders on what goes on. And I think personally this was a bad call. So apparently, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it ends up that supposedly there was some lady, I don't know if she was a government official or whatever, or just lived in Georgia near these plants and just decided to call and report these visa offenders. But whatever happened, regardless of who it was that called in, apparently it was some lady, this causes a lot of angst. And it just shows an underlying problem that has been going on, and a blind eye has been turned to this for a matter of years. So, yeah, it is what it is. The workers released from the detention center early Thursday after a week after their arrest. Their flight was initially scheduled to arrive a day earlier, but they were delayed as President Trump paused the administration process. Seoul later said it suggested the Korean workers stay in the U.S. and train American workers instead of leaving right away. After Jang said, after going through the situation like this, I don't think anyone would have wanted to stay. I get it. If I have to go back to the U.S. again in the future to work, I think I might, but I think I need some time to think it over. So, and here's some things here is that, there's some people that said, well, why they're taking jobs away from American workers. These employees are engineers and subject matter experts, and they were there to train people to do those jobs. So it's not like you can just, hire somebody off the street. Hey, come and make these EV batteries. Here, you're an engineer. Come on, we'll just jump right in and learn the job, and you're good to go. You don't even have to go through any training. Just jump in and do the job. That is not how this works. So and usually with big manufacturing facilities. And even facilities in the United States, you'll have somebody that will be a subject matter expert that needs to train future employees and supervisors and engineers and repairmen and maintenance staff on how to do these jobs. So it's a very involved process. So usually what companies will do is they will bring a team of their own people to come and train in that country future employees that will take care of that plant. And again, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars that Korea is investing into the United States at the behest of President Trump. And then this happens. And technically correct that, yes, their B1 visa or whatever it is a visitor, and it's also for temporary visitor things, but it's more like business meetings and conferences and stuff like that. You're not supposed to be paid by a U.S. company. So therein lies the rub. It ends up that they were being paid by Hyundai LG company in the United States, and somebody ratted them out, and it ends up, it's like, okay, well, if they had been paid by Korea, so in other words, if Hyundai and LG paid them, from Korea, then it would be totally fine. Apparently, from what I've read so far, so that's subject to change as well as more details come out. But the blind eye has been turned with these visas that were usually just for conferences and stuff like this, and the Koreans were allowed to do this for decades. And the other interesting thing that comes up is that many other countries like China, Mexico, other countries around the world there's a certain allotment of work visas, like the E1 or E2 work visas, whatever the work visa designation is. There's only so many that they issue out. Well, Korea has gotten the short end of the stick, and they can't get those. And it takes a long time. And so now you have the current administration wants Korea to invest hundreds of billions of dollars and get these plants up and running as part of the deal to say, hey, you don't have to pay tariffs, or as part of that tariff negotiation thing. And Korea's okay, we'll do it. We don't want to pay tariffs, so we'll build a manufacturing facility in the United States. No problem. But the visa thing is a problem. But in the past, previous administrations, both left, right, and in between, have turned a blind eye and said, it's no big deal. We're not going to do anything about it. So suddenly, some lady apparently called in and turned these people in, and this became a big hubbub about all this. And that's where the problem is that the U.S. government should have a special visa for these Koreans to come in the United States. I don't know, how hard is it? Can't be, call it a USAK visa, K work visa, for instances like this, have a quick application period and a quick approval process where they're allowed to work regardless of where they're getting paid. They're going to get paid from Hyundai and LG, from their own workers, whether it's from the United States or in Korea. It doesn't matter for that point. George pops in and says, hey, howdy. How's it going? Good. Doing good, George. We're talking about how the United States has screwed over Korean employees in the recent Georgia raid. It is quite the thing that we're checking about. Even George says the visa system needs an overhaul, and that's what we're talking about. Absolutely, there's with this trade deal between the United States and Korea, which is hundreds of billions of dollars and investment, time and money and resources and so on and so forth. They really need to overhaul the visa system, like we were just talking about. Hey, Terry pops up. Says, "Good morning, Steve. I thought I went way overboard and placed these people in shackles." Yeah, I totally agree. And that's somebody who was in law enforcement and worked in prisons. Yeah, I just don't understand, especially with the fact that the United States turned a blind eye to this visa problem for this administration, the previous administration, and even the one before that. So it has been a systemic problem, and apparently it wasn't a problem in the past, but now suddenly it is, and then you get this raid, and I think it's just very, very poor planning on the United States. Whether it's the current or the past administrations, they should have offered a special work visa for Koreans to do projects like this. Especially in the midst of this tariff deal and the whole nine yards. If you want foreign companies to come into your country and build manufacturing plants, so it's a benefit to them and a benefit to the United States, there's a good deal to be had. You should have a special visa program, but they don't, and therein lies the rub. It is the same system from President Ford. Yeah, it's not the exact same. There have been changes within the visa system, but generally, it's basically the same. But when you have special circumstances of Korean companies coming into the United States, like we're seeing, hundreds of billions of dollars, and you have these employees that are going to get that plant up and running and training future U.S. People in doing those jobs, you need to have a special visa. That's all there is to it. It is very crazy. Terry says, I saw the video of the woman who turned them in, and she's so happy with herself. So it was a woman, and was she? I didn't see that video. I heard about it. But was she just like a regular citizen? Was she like an elected official? I mean, I bet if she's really happy, I'm not sure why, because that is going to postpone the process of getting that plant up and running and eventually offering jobs and employment to U.S. citizens. And this is causing a huge strain between Korea and the United States. And I'm telling you, as somebody who's retired in Korea and living here in a visa, Koreans are pissed. They are pissed. They are. George says, bloody Karen. Yeah, seriously. But this should have been a non-issue. This should have been addressed a long time ago when Korea came in and said, hey, we're building a plant for whatever reason, at the behest of the U.S. government. In past administrations and the one before that and the one before that, there should have been special visas made for these Koreans, but there's not. And the interesting thing is that other countries like Mexico have more visas than Korea, and Mexico doesn't have huge plants like Korea is investing into the United States. So yeah, it is old. It is old. Terry says that Karen was a regular citizen. Karen. Seriously, I just don't get it. When you have people like that, and it's like, oh, she's so happy, that she turned in and did her part for democracy or whatever, protecting the United States. Really, lady, what you ended up doing is you just delayed the job opportunities for U.S. citizens and pushed this down the road even further. So congratulations on hamstringing American citizens in getting jobs. It's going to be later rather than sooner. And this is going to have a big fallout. I think this is going to have a big fallout. She was complaining that they were using foreign workers instead of Americans. Well, of course they were using foreign workers instead of Americans, because in that plant, you have engineers, you have people with PhDs, you have people that run that EV battery plant. They were there to get the plant up and running and to train the future employees. And yet Karen is pissed off because they're using foreign workers. It's because nobody in the United States can do those jobs. And this is like a common practice. When a foreign company comes to a different country, they will bring their own staff to get that company or manufacturing facility up and running. And then they will eventually, you got to have supervisors and things like that to train new employees that come into this. It's not like you can just, like I said, you can't just pull somebody off the street of downtown Georgia, Atlanta, whatever. Hey, you homeless dude, get in here and be a supervisor. And oh yeah, you over here, you can be an engineer. Just step in and just start doing the job. That's not how it works. These people have to be trained, and you have to. There's a whole process. So obviously, Karen is clueless. Clueless Karen is what we will call her, and it just. Without details and knowing the information, you have people that will say ignorant things. I know, because I am ignorant in a lot of things, and I have been there, done that. But we should strive to find out the information so we can make a correct assessment. Terry pops up and says, she's holding up 8,000 jobs. Karen. Clueless Karen is holding up 8,000 jobs that could be going to U.S. citizens, and it's not good. Sparky. Hey, we got Sparky on board here. This whole thing was sad as they needed skilled people for this place. Absolutely. You have engineers, you have people with PhDs, you have tradespeople, you have, all of these people to get the plant up and running and to train future U.S. citizen employees. But now that's not going to happen. And it is crazy. Uh, Karen would have a stroke if she learned the history of Project Paperclip. Pat, hey, how's it going, Pat Star? Hey, could the Koreans train some Americans to do some of the tasks? Well, that exactly right. That was the whole purpose, is to get the manufacturing facility up and running. Of course, you're going to need subject matter experts to do that, and then eventually those staff were going to be training new employees, which would be U.S. citizens. Of course, that was part of the whole deal, But the little detail is that the H-1B visa or whatever it is a temporary work visa. Generally, you're not supposed to be paid by a U.S. company, but in something like it has been going on for decades, because the U.S. visa system is so far behind and outdated that, come invest hundreds of billions of dollars, but we're not going to update and make the visa system to get these people and get this manufacturing plant up and running and training U.S. citizens. No, we're not going to make that easy. We're just going to leave it alone. So I think this is a major thing that the current administration should have looked at. And apparently Korea, according to Korean news, they've been complaining about this for some time, but the past administration, whether it's left, right, or in between, and the one we have now, the United States has been like, nah. So as a U.S. citizen, you got to look at this and you got to take one for the team and say, yeah, we screwed the pooch on this. But Koreans are pissed. I'm telling you, this could be seriously bad. And let's go over some more information here. Some of the, a bunch of workers came. Workers were transported to their homes by company-arranged buses by LG Energy. The company also expected to provide the workers with a month-long leave as well as additional support for physical and mental recovery. Out of the 330 workers, 264 were from LG Energy Solutions and partner companies, which included 14 other foreign nationals. Also included 66 Hyundai Engineering and its partner companies' workers. It is. They were glad to be home. They just wanted to come home, take a shower. And let's kind of jump over to this here. So, in this visa clash, what we end up seeing is building American factories, creating U.S. jobs. Experts warn lack of work visas undermine billions of Korean investment. A breakdown on how and why the Georgia raid occurred and its implications. And again, this was part of a trade deal, and then you're going to screw over the people that you did a deal with to build the plants and get it running and train future U.S. citizens. I just don't get it. Karen, clueless Karen, I hope you're happy with yourself. You're an idiot in my book. So it goes through, and 475 detainees, 317 were Korean, and there was even a pregnant lady there. Have Korean companies faced visa trouble before? Yeah. And it's not the first time that this has happened. During the prior administration under Joe Biden, which encouraged investment of tens of billions of dollars from Korean battery giants, one firm faced scrutiny regarding the validity of its short-term workers to set up a production line for a joint venture with a U.S. automaker. Our firm encountered visa-related friction with the previous U.S. administration, although not as severe as this one. We had negotiated with the U.S. Embassy to drop a contract ensuring that Korean workers could perform production line setup tasks under B1 and B2 visas. So, it would allow them to come install, service, repair machinery, in other words, get the plants up and running. However, others entered under the electronic system for travel authorization, which permits foreigners to enter the U.S. for tourism, business, or transit for a maximum of 90 days. Now, the reason that they did this is this electronic system travel authorization, the approval time is much faster because getting the B1 and B2 visas was really slow. So the B2 visas mainly covers tourism, but it permits short-term business engagement like conferences or meetings. It showed leniency towards Korean companies in the past to expedite facility construction backed by a commitment to create thousands of local jobs. However, the tide shifted sharply in the second half of the year and grew to more stringent after Trump came into office. And here's the whole thing: is the E2 work visas, and people are saying, well, why not just do that? Well, the problem is they resorted to these because the approvals were generally successful, but since the second half of 2024, almost all applications with 1 or 2 in every 10 have been denied. This change is linked with the policy shift in the current administration. Unlike B visas, which prohibit employment in the U.S., the E2 visa for investors in U.S. businesses allows for longer stays up to 5 years and includes work permit and let the visa holder actively engage in invested business. But the approval time is, it dropped from 600 to 400. So you're telling people, we're going to do this trade deal, and we want you to invest hundreds of billions of dollars to satisfy negotiations and tariffs and all this stuff. So it ended up being negotiable. And Korea said, yeah, we'll do it. And we're going to send a bunch of workers. But the United States didn't make like a special visa, which is basically all you have to do is say, have a USK visa, work visa for investment deals, and they can stay for 2, 3, 5 years, however long it is, to get the plant up and running, to train future U.S. citizens in the employment in those plants, and boom, it could have been a done deal. It could have been just, the past administrations or this administration just shooting a letter off to immigration saying, so let it be written, so let it be done. And this wouldn't have been a problem. But yeah, it is, it is the thing. Here's the thing. Couldn't U.S. workers do the job? According to the Korean companies, initial involvement is necessary to build the production lines within the short window of time that Trump had provided them. And talking about the one big bill, and basically what it comes down to is, you need to have smart people build it, and then smart people train other people to become smart to work it. And apparently Clueless Karen didn't like that. What do you do? But eventually, like Pat asked, could Americans do those jobs? Well, eventually they will do those jobs, but that's on hold now. So what does this mean for plant construction? This is pretty bad because the plant here is at risk. Batteries, 50 gigawatt hours of batteries per year risks losing $4 million a day if it stops production. So $4 million a day. In a week, how much? 4 times 7, that's 28, probably $30 billion or $1 million has been, they're in the red because that they have been put behind because of this raid. Hyundai LG battery represents a $4.3 billion investment. And it's going to provide roughly 8,500 jobs. So it is, and with this, the total investment in Georgia comes out to $7.6 billion, generating an estimated 40,000 direct and indirect jobs. It makes it one of the largest economic development projects in Georgia's history. So it is definitely going to be a problem. And other countries have faced these visa problems as well. But Korea, it seems, they're getting the brunt of it, and that's why the title of this is that the United States screws over Korean employees, because they're getting screwed more than any of the other countries that are facing similar problems. So it is crazy. Like an auto engineer professor at Daelim University suggested the U.S. allow specialized work visas for Korea, similar to what is offered by those of Singapore and Chile, which allowed qualified personnel to work in specialty occupations in the United States under annual visa caps of $5,400 for Singapore and $1,400 for Chile. So all it had to do is just say, hey, we're doing this big deal. You need to come and build these big plants and do this trade deal that we're doing with Korea, hundreds of billions of dollars. Trump could have ended up saying, immigration, make a special visa similar to Singapore, Chile, just make it a USA, Korea, big beautiful bill, work visa, whatever you want to end up calling it. And put the number of however many Korean employees that you need to get the plant up and running and training U.S. citizens to do those jobs in those plants. And this wouldn't have been a thing, but unfortunately it is. And it is, yeah, it is pretty rough. Other people that were there are saying, yeah, that the raid was unjustified. On the other side, you have a bunch of, I would say, ignorant people in the United States that are saying, oh, it serves them right that they got, they didn't have the right visas, they broke the law. And it's like, really? Technically, yes, but the whole thing is that the prior administration, so this isn't a right-left thing. This is a systemic problem that we've had for decades. And telling a country that you need to invest in our country with hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, and then you don't adjust the visa work issue, that's piss poor planning. That's bad leadership on the past administration and the current administration, in my opinion. But then again, I'm an independent, so. But yeah, it ends up, it's in this other article, it says it's really no secret and nothing new that countless numbers of workers from Korea come here to work without the proper work visa. Many of us, Yoon Kim, 43, who lives in Duluth, part of Atlanta's large Koreatown corridor. Many of us in the area directly or indirectly know or have known people who are here in that situation. So yeah, this kind of workflow is especially common during the initial setup phase of a new facility, said the manager of another Korean manufacturing plant in the south of the United States. It is not legal, but there's no other realistic way to meet the deadlines and quality standards set forth by the United States and also the Korean companies. In the U.S. work visa, the H-1B is capped at $85,000 a year and quickly runs out, and most of those go to applicants from India and China. That leaves Koreans with only a small share and companies struggling to bring in short-term technicians for new plants. So again, you need to look at the problem as a whole and say, hey, well, we're doing this billion-dollar deal. Let's make a special visa, and so there are no problems like this. So, yeah, it is a very interesting thing. Terry pops up and says, the employees need special training for manufacturing lithium batteries. That's why the Koreans were there. These aren't lead acid batteries. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And you got to have smart people to train people to be smart to work in that facility. So again, you're going to need subject matter experts. And working in industrial capacities that I've done in the past, like let's say you get, I've worked in facilities where you had pieces of equipment were $200,000 or $300,000, and that new piece of equipment comes into a manufacturing facility. You don't just buy the equipment, plug it in, and start running it. No, you also have to have a subject matter expert that is going to oversee the installation, make sure that everything's good, show people how that it works, be a supervisor to those people to make sure that they can get that piece of equipment up and running. And it's a very involved process. Then we're talking ongoing maintenance, we're talking about ordering and supplies and all of the intricacies that come with industrial manufacturing. That's how it's done. But if you don't know how it's done, and like clueless Karen, you're just like, oh, they're taking away U.S. jobs. It's like Karen. You just have no clue on what you're talking about, unfortunately. So with that, it comes up and it says, well, what other options do Korean companies have? And this was the largest single-site immigration enforcement action in U.S. history. And this was with a big, huge, giant company that the United States did a deal with. So, yeah, clueless Karen. But it did, ultimately it brought about the problem that we're facing, but Koreans got screwed over. So, yeah, it ends up. It's just, some people, the online debate has gone, like one person said, well, why does the law exist? Why do Korean companies think that they should just bend the rules of another country? They're probably not even willing to take responsibility if individuals run into legal problems because of their greed, wrote one user. It's like, seriously, really? So people with PhD and engineering degrees are just going to run amok, in a country where they're building manufacturing plants that will ultimately hire 8,500 direct U.S. jobs and another 40,000 of indirect jobs? No, probably not. Another user said, Korean companies have been breaking the law for Lord knows how long. People who are staying in the U.S. is suddenly cracking down are missing the point. They should have been caught much earlier. These greedy businesses were just lucky that authorities kept their eyes shut. But again, that begs the question. Again, I think that comes out of ignorance, because these were trade deals that were done with this administration and the past administration, and the visa program has not adjusted to these new things. So I think a lot of people are just, they're jumping on the bandwagon, and it's, oh, these are wrong, and look, I'm right and you're wrong, and they should have been deported. It's like, that's not the issue here. The issue is that the visa system does not match the trade deals that have been done between two countries, and yeah, it needed to be updated and it wasn't. And then some clueless Karen called, and yeah, these are just like absolutely crazy. So imagine that you were brought to a country to build a manufacturing facility and train citizens of that country ultimately, and then ICE shows up and takes you away. Yeah, not good, not good, not good. So anyway, there's a couple other estimates that said that these companies are losing $4 to $7 million a day. Ugh. And it's putting those jobs, those future jobs, on hold. Let's see. Terry says, I had to get a special OSHA training to work with lithium batteries in the job I used to do. Oh, okay, cool. It's dangerous when making the intercell connection to prevent fire and electrocution. Yeah, OSHA don't play. You got to be safe. But yeah, you just can't pull some average Joe off the street and say, hey, put these things together. OSHA training, that is a huge part of it. But then also the specifics of those batteries in what you do. And Terry, obviously knows about that. You just can't pull some average Joe off the street and say, hey, put this together and work it. It's not like working at a fast food restaurant and building a Big Mac. No, it's a little bit more involved. You need to have some smarts. You need to have some education. So for the Americans that are so hung up on this immigration raid and saying, oh, this is good, we need to have America first, they're missing the point that it is America first. You're just hampering that process by not understanding what goes into building a manufacturing plant. And it just makes me cringe. It is indeed cringeworthy. Here's another interesting thing that we can take a look at. It talks about U.S. trade negotiations hit impasse as Seoul bristles at outsized investment scheme. Yeah, this is a good one here. Tariff negotiations. He indicated if negotiations break down, U.S. tariffs on Korean goods, currently at 15%, could revert back to 25%. This is going to be huge. At the center is the dispute of a $350 billion investment package. The U.S. is demanding the Korean officials describe as a blank check scheme similar to Japan's deal, in which Washington would decide when, where, and how Korea deploys its funds. Washington's proposal would leave little room for Korea to direct or distribute investment independently. I think that's kind of a problem. As a country or as a person, either at a macro or micro level, if I invest into something, I should have some say of where that's going to go, because perhaps if I do the due diligence and see, well, you need to put all this money over here, and it's like, well, that's not a good investment, I'm not going to get a good return on my money, maybe it would be better over there. There needs to be other negotiations that are involved. But having this to where it's like, oh, well, you have to do 350 billion, and by the way, I'm going to tell you where to put it without any interaction, I think that's lacking in my opinion. But then again, I don't build manufacturing facilities. I'm a retired hobby tech guy here in Korea. So talks about some other stuff. Yeah, it's just going to be problematic. and especially with what is going on now, because uh, it's just not good. This whole immigration thing was just not good. 8 days of detention. He just wanted to get back home. Let's see. The arrest came without warning. Belongings, cell phones were confiscated. They're issued prison uniforms and known as alien numbers, placed in a two-person cell. Detainees could walk in the yard, talk with one another outside their designated head counts and curfew hours. We shared news from lawyers and staff with each other. I believed it would be resolved eventually. I heard the government quickly organized a response team the next day, and the officers weren't particularly coercive. Maybe they realized they had made a mistake. They canceled the B1 visa, but told me I could apply for another one without restrictions. I've seen other articles about this, other people saying basically the same thing, that it's like, yeah, we got you, and then it's like, yeah. So it's kind of a change of heart is what has been seen. And yeah, the rooms were poor, bathrooms were cramped. Well, it's a detention facility, But for somebody who's never been into that, I can understand. Asked if he would return, Lee replied cautiously, "It seems safest to go on an E1 or an L visa with no issues. For now, I just want to be with my family." So, yeah, some very interesting things. Georgia raid could make Korean companies wary of U.S. investment, which is absolutely true. Talking about this, and what do you do? What do you do? U.S. South Korean firms doing business in the U.S. must be left baffled now with the work issue thing. A factory needs technicians to install mechanical equipment, but they're not permanent hires. No U.S. technicians could do that work. Our workers train local staff and then return home. If that's impossible, South Korean companies will have to ask themselves whether they would continue building plants in the U.S. while fearing disadvantages and challenges, especially in regards to the tariff deals. So, yeah, it is a huge impact. And now here we're going to talk about the impact that this has on how the Koreans think. It is just crazy. Sultan pops up. Hey, you're back. It's funny how things change. When I left Hong Kong, I felt this way about China. Leave the rest of us alone. Go build your great empire on Mars or something. But the fallout on this for Koreans are pissed. Koreans are pissed as a whole. And there's calls. There are Koreans that are like, hey, you want to play that game? Then we're going to kick out all the Americans that are teaching English without the proper visas. And a lot of that happens. So they're talking about, people want nationwide immigration raids on English teachers who are teaching English in Korea without the proper visa. Boom. There's some radical Koreans that are saying, kind of radical stuff, kind of like we see in the United States. You got radicals everywhere. But you have people that are saying, hey, we just need to, just get rid of all the Americans in Korea. And it's like, whoa, am I going to, so that causes a little bit of concern. I don't think it'll go that far. But yeah, it is absolutely crazy. Someone pops up and says, now I feel the same about the U.S. Hey, Elon, when are you taking your guys to Mars? It's going to be a long time before they get to Mars. It is a long time. I don't understand the whole thing with going to Mars. I don't think we even went to the moon. I think that's the only conspiracy. That's my number one conspiracy theory. If you had to nail me down for a conspiracy theory, I don't think we went to the moon and put men on the moon. But it doesn't make a difference because it doesn't change anything. But I can see how if faking the moon landing and putting people on the moon would end the space race and put the U.S. as, the victor of conquering space and planetary, travel and so on and so forth, that would have put Russia in its place and be like, oh, well, shit, we can't get to the moon. They already got to the moon. I could totally see we're faking it because Lord forbid, did we ever fake anything in the past? I don't know. We made fake planes and tanks and fake, lines in wars during World War II where you had inflatable tanks to kind of, trick the Germans in thinking, oh, they got a ton of forces. No, it's just a bunch of balloon tanks and stuff. So we have faked. Many countries have faked a lot of things in the past to get what they wanted. I think the moon landing is one of those things. But anyway, there must be, if Elon wants to go to Mars, that's absolutely cool because he's doing it as a private company, even if it's a public company. It's a company and he can do whatever he wants. So, but the funny thing is, whatever he's going to end up doing, he's going to make a bunch of money doing that. So, if they ever thought those conditions were bad, they were never used a military latrine tent. Absolutely true. And thank God the detention facility was a nice one. There are some prisons in the United States that would just make you cringe. I mean, it would make me cringe, and I worked in prisons. So yeah, it sounds like they were actually pretty good. If you get a 2-person room, that's kind of like that's a big deal. There's a lot of prisons and detention facilities where you do not get that at all. It is more like a gang latrine, multiple beds in the same room, zero privacy. You have 10, 20 people in the same room with one toilet and boom, there it is. So, but the fallout for this, going back to what the Korean populace is saying, is that, you're going to do that to us? Especially after you've kind of forced us into this trade deal with the tariffs and so on and so forth. And then now it's like you're punishing us because you want the plant built. You made a deal with us as Korea to invest into the United States. And then this is how you're treating the people that get these plants up and running and the people who are going to be training U.S. citizens to do those jobs. Yeah, let's kick out all the English teachers. It is huge. So I don't know. People might look at me a little funny here. I think I'm just, I can't just like blend into the background because I'm 6'2" and 260 pounds. So I kind of stand out for the average Korean. But the Koreans are pissed. Koreans are pissed. And if you piss off Koreans, whether it's in sports, whether it's anything, that can have some long-term effects. So we're talking about this is probably going to have an effect on tourism for the United States. So the fallout from this is obviously these manufacturing plants are not going to be able to train and hire U.S. citizens as quickly as they thought they could because now everything's on hold and they're losing $4 to $7 million a day. And thanks to clueless Karen who doesn't understand how manufacturing and setting up companies works, training people and so on and so forth. Clueless Karen, shame on you. But now, Koreans, they will hold a grudge. If you do them dirty, they will remember that. And so I fully expect that we will see a reduction in the amount of tourism from Korea to the United States because of this issue that we're seeing. And I've already seen posts of where Koreans are like, I was going to go vacation in the United States. Not now. They're not happy about this at all, and people are pissed at the Korean president here. It's just like this could get dirty real quick, and I think there needs to be the current administration. What they need to do is Trump needs to go and he needs to issue an apology to Korea. This is what I would do. I would issue an apology to Korea. I would immediately institute a new work visa system specifically for Korean companies and the companies that he does trade deals with for the United States, for them to invest in the United States. And of course, just make it, USA K work visa. Boom. USA KC visa for, Chinese companies to come and invest. I don't think Chinese companies investing in the United States is a good idea, but that's neither here nor there. But you see what I'm saying. It's not good right now. And there's a lot of uproar about what happened, and the populace here in Korea is not happy with the United States in this immigration raid, especially because this was all part of deals that was made with the prior administration. So again, this isn't a left or right thing. And I, as an independent, I like ideas from both sides. So, but I think this is a systemic problem with the visa and immigration system that has been going on for a long time, and it's just people just turn a blind eye, you know, and that needs to be fixed. You know, instead of turning a blind eye, and again, that goes back to the inefficiency of government, and yeah, this is just rough. Going back to the moon, Terry says, if Neil Armstrong was the first to step on the moon, who was filming as he came down the ladder? I don't know. Maybe it was staged. Maybe they had a production crew. Somebody was saying that they had this big old long camera arm that went out and extended out and pointed the camera back as he was the first man to step. I don't know. You know, and then the Van Allen belt, you know, the radiation supposedly, you know, you look at the shielding on those aircraft in the lunar module, and it's just like it's like tinfoil. You know, it's basically like tinfoil. And it's like, and then now the other interesting thing is that they lost all the telemetry data for going to the moon with people, but you can send stuff to the moon, but machine stuff. And you can send satellites in, you know, non-organic things into space and out into real space. But when it comes to people, NASA lost all of that information, which I find, you know, just like they lost a ton of information in the JFK assassination, which is, that's another conspiracy theory. So there's two that I believe in. I don't think we actually put a man on the moon. And I think there was a conspiracy in the killing of JFK. So those are the two big things. Other than that, I'm kind of normal and boring. So, yeah. But, yeah. It just, and even astronauts going just this rabbit hole, there's even astronauts that have said, that were on the International Space Station, that said they end up... you know, we need to solve the problem of the Van Allen belts before we send in, you know, because we got to have the proper shielding and so on and so forth. And when they solve that problem, then we can go to Mars. But that whole discussion was going to Mars. Well, if we've already been to the moon, then you already have that, fix that problem. But all the files are lost. And it's like, yeah, I don't. Here's another interesting tidbit. You know the LA Observatory in California? I've been up there. I used to live in California near San Bernardino, in San Bernardino for a while, and went up there to the LA Observatory. You know, you get to see it. It's really cool, the overlook of the city, and, you know, I mean, it's just kind of a cool thing. So going through the tour, and you get to ask questions, and so I asked a question. It says, well, can't use this giant telescope to point towards the moon of where the lunar landing site is at, and why don't you guys take pictures, and then you could sell those pictures. And the person there said, we are not allowed to point the telescope at the lunar landing site on the moon. Not allowed to do it. And it's like, why? Just not allowed to do it. That's all we've been told. We're not allowed to do it. I was like, but that would be cool if you know, you get pictures and you could sell them, put them on postcards or whatever. You know, that would be a cool thing. No, we cannot do that. Next question, please. Oh, yes. There's some moon dust over here. You know, that's how the discussion went. So that kind of fuels that whole thing there. Asian movement. Hey, welcome to the channel. Epstein files. Nothing to see here. Okay, 3. But I don't think that's a conspiracy theory. I think there was the Epstein files, which is weird. That's another weird thing. Here, let's move this to the side because now we're just rambling and talking about crazy stuff here. The Epstein file, the whole 9 yards. It's like, well, you arrested Epstein, and then we have the file, we have the list, and then he's in prison, and then suddenly now it's like, oh, there's no list. And it's like, well, wait, Pam Bondi and stuff says, oh, the list is on my desk and blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly, through some magic shell game, you know, that happened, now there is no list. That tells me that, well, so you arrested Epstein because of the list, but there is no list, and so that means his arrest was illegal. And it's funny that his lawyer never said, hey, there's no such thing as a list. So again, there's a lot of conflicting information. But I think a lot of bad stuff happened on Epstein Island. That's all I'm saying. Sultan says the U.S. is rapidly trading pragmatism for ideology. Dangerous times. Yeah, it could be, But then every country is doing, they're trying to do what's right for their country, with the elected officials that they have. And, that can get dangerous. Look at Nepal. But that's not really a just comparison, because Nepal ended up having severely corrupt politicians, and the poor people got pissed off, and finally they overtook, and they burned the body of the prime minister's wife or whatever. They were beating up they burned down their parliament and whatever. So yeah, it's when you create that divide, such a huge divide between the poor and the rich, and you have an ever shrinking middle class, and you get rid of that, eventually there's going to be a straw that breaks the camel's back. So it's just yeah. Sultan says, and hey, the earth is flat. Just kidding. I've unfortunately, I have had people that believe that people that I was physical friends with before I came to Korea, who thought the earth was flat and disassociated with me after years and years of being friends, close friends, whole 9 yards. And because I didn't think the earth was flat, they chose to end our friendship. And it's I don't get the flat earth thing, because it's my whole thing is got to make common sense. So if you believe in a flat earth, you can believe whatever you want, flying spaghetti monster, whatever religion that you want to do, as long as you don't infringe upon the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness of other people, you can believe whatever you want. But there should be some evidence that can be had of proving that the earth is flat. And so if I believe that the earth is flat, for me, again, it's my own opinion, does it increase manufacturing? Does it save me any money? Do I pay less on my taxes? Does it make a plumber a better plumber? Does it make the taxi driver a better driver? Does it improve safety? Does it have any tangible effects by believing that the earth is flat? And every single time, it doesn't make a doctor a better doctor. It doesn't make a soldier a better soldier. There is no thing to say oh, I was only getting a 4% return on my investment, but now I believe in a flat earth and suddenly I'm getting 12%. No, there's none of that. There is no increase in air travel, in times, safety, manufacturing. There's absolutely no benefits whatsoever than saying, the earth is flat. There's nothing tangible there. And unfortunately, the individual that I was friends with for so many years ended up basically saying, well, if you don't believe the earth is flat, you're not believing what the Bible is telling. He took it as a religious thing. And it was just that's pulling that out of context. And that's not what the text is talking about. It's even a child could see that. But that's what happens when you have lacking education and you have people that just listen to idiots on the internet. Idiot on the internet. It's just kind of funny. But back to what we got going on. This is going to be an interesting little deal that we have. There's going to be more fallout for this because, like I said, this isn't over. The visa system needs to be rehabbed. It needs to be redone. It needs to have a specific visa for companies like Korea, countries that come in and build manufacturing plants because of the negotiation deals, the trade deals and tariffs and that whole thing. You need to have your own visas to meet the goals and the expectations and the deals that you made. But if you don't, it's just going to be rough. Oh, you're going?
Yeah.
Tina here? Or are you going to meet her?
At the gate.
Oh, okay. All right. Love you.
Love you.
There's the wife. She's going to spend some time with her daughter and go get massage and the whole 9 yards. And so, yeah, they're doing that. So they're going to have fun. And I'm talking to you all. So, drinking my latte. But yeah, the visa system needs to be overhauled to accommodate all of these new deals. And as you know, with any government system, the government is slow and inefficient. And thankfully, with this administration, there have been things made to where they're consolidating, they're making things more efficient. But in the visa and the immigration part, it's just lacking in this regard for work visas, especially for the specific deals that we're seeing, like Korea, in these battery plants and so on and so forth. Da, da, da. Mlobo. Well, welcome. If I butchered your name, I'm sorry. I was witness to several arrests of foreign nationals, Americans, Canadians, British, at a language school in, let's get you propped up there again, in South Korea for the crime of working in a country on a tourist visa. Yeah, there was a big crackdown on that. Matter of fact, when I got to Korea, the first time I got to Korea was in 1988, just prior to the Olympics. And matter of fact, I was teaching English, conversational English, at Kangwon University up in Chuncheon, which is northeast of Korea, at a university. And it was no big deal. Yeah, you should have had, the TESOL, ESOL, whatever it is, the certification, but it wasn't frowned upon back then, and it wasn't a big deal. But nowadays, they've been cracking down, and you should get the right certification. You should get the right visa. It says they were promptly marched to Kimpo Airport for removal by Korean immigration authorities. Wrong visa, no shit's given. Yep, yeah, and rightfully so, But there's more of a call for that to go through and do big immigration sweeps for people that are teaching English, because you see it on YouTube. You see people that are in Korea that are doing jobs that they probably shouldn't be doing because their visa is not that type of visa. My visa, for example, my visa is an F1 visa. By my visa, I am not allowed to work for a Korean employee here in Korea. So, it is what it is. I got to turn the AC on a little bit. So, but if Korea wants a lot of English teachers, then they can make visas that will accommodate that. But if you're willfully, going against the grain and you're here on a tourist visa, but you're overstayed your visa, yeah, you should probably be rounded up and deported. That's all I'm saying. I feel the same way in the United States. Countries' borders, sovereign borders are important, and the immigration laws are there for a reason. But with that, there should also be some concessions made for when you have big companies come in, or if you have certain, deals that you've made, or you're trying to get, more people to teach or do a certain thing in a country. You should have a visa program that allows for that. That is a more updated system than what you currently have. So, yeah. Let's see what else. But yeah, I bet you. And Korea's been cracking down on immigration, on overstays and stuff like this. So this isn't new, but this is going to fuel this even further when we talk about this stuff. So yeah, it is definitely going to be a thing. And let me just, my OCD is kind of kicking in here a little bit. But yeah, that is definitely going to be a thing. And I think we're going to see more of that. But the tension between the United States and Korea was a little bit shaky to begin with this tariff deal thing, and there's a lot of angst over that. But now this is going to ratchet this up even more between the U.S. and Korea, and I think this could be problematic. Terry says, we'll be applying for our F1 and F4 visa probably in November so we can move there next year. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Pretty simple. The term of it is good for 5 years, and then, or 3 years. It's either 3 or 5 years. But then you have to renew like 2 years, had to renew, and then you get a 3-year renewal or some variation, so it adds up to 5. And then you have to resubmit an entire new F1 or F4 visa. So that comes into play, and which isn't bad. It's minor updates and things like that. It's less complicated than what I thought it would be. So the bureaucracy here in Korea for those, in our experience, is not that bad. It is actually, it's better than what I thought it would be. And then eventually over time, depending on the income that you make, you could go for the F513 visa, which the requirements are a little bit more stringent. And if you speak the Korean language and you can read, write, and the whole 9 yards, and then you can take a proficiency test, then the income requirement is 1 time the GNI of Korea, which is like around $36,000. But if you don't speak, read, write Korean, then it's 2 times the GNI, which is about $72,000. So depending on the pensions and the money that you have, you could go for let's say you make enough to meet that requirement. You could go for an F513 visa, which would be, you would be a permanent resident. And then you just update your fingerprints like every 10 years. So you would have the right to vote, you get, same benefits as Korean citizens, and ultimately that's what I want to hope to get. Just falling short of the income. So I think if we end up purchasing another apartment, being able to rent that out, and then draw my Social Security at 62, then I will hit that mark, that income requirement for the F513, and then I'm going to jump on that. But the wife, she's going to stay with the F4 visa with that for right now. So basically every 5 years, she'll just have to resubmit. It's no problem for her because she's a returning Korean. And we'll see how that goes. Sultan ends up saying, thank you for the shout out to our Lord Flying Spaghetti Monster. I'm a devoted pastafarian. Pasta is king. Oh, speaking of pasta, there is a very good pasta restaurant, close by to where we live. It's called Big Bites, and incredible pasta. I mean, they've got the oil spaghetti, they've got, the Alfredo and all. It is probably the best pasta restaurant that is in this area. Great portions, salads are awesome. The chefs are incredible. Again, you can get like for example, we had Caesar salad with chicken. Other times we get tomato spaghetti, and then with chicken, slab of chicken on there. Just incredible. Not dry, never dry or tough. It's always moist and Now you got me hungry. But definitely, Terry, if you get down to this area, go to Big Bites. Also go to Le Pain. They're a great kind of like breakfast. They got some good, they got some cinnamon rolls and stuff like that. And it's just really good. And their coffee's good too. Their lattes are really good. Not as good as mine, but they're pretty damn good. So, there's going to be some fallout happening with this Korea immigration raid on the LG Hyundai plant thing that we got going on. It's definitely going to lose money for Korea. Again, $4 to $7 million a day is what they're going to end up losing within that. And then also that's going to have a ripple effect into the local economy, because if that plant is down, the indirect jobs associated with that are on hold as well. And then ultimately, the people that are the U.S. citizens that are going to be employed in those manufacturing plants, that's pushed down further down the road as well. So clueless Karen was definitely clueless when she made the phone call, because she thinks she was doing something great for America, and you just held up 8,500 jobs. Congrats, you're an idiot. Because you don't know how manufacturing works. That's what we got going on. Some fun stuff here in Korea, which is going to be interesting. Again, there's already calls here in Koreans for Koreans to boycott the United States as far as like vacation destinations and things like that. There's going to be some fallout. There's going to be some fallout from this. And Koreans remember. They will remember. And rightfully so. You force Korea to come and spend billions of dollars to invest and do a deal that you negotiated with the United States, and kind of because of the tariff deal thing, and then it's like, hey, ICE immigration raid, yeah, probably not a good thing. But that's something that should have been addressed not only with this administration but the past, of saying, hey, if you're going to come in and do a factory, we need to have a specific visa that is quick, fast, and in a hurry, so that we can meet the requirements for doing this deal. And like I said, it's not a right or a left thing, because both sides have been lacking when it comes to this type of stuff in the United States. So the blame is fix the immigration system. You got to have an immigration system. But yeah, there's in going back to like what was it? Who's the M Love Mo? M Love Mo. I wish there could be a video that say that. M Love Mo. We'll just call it that. Seeing the arrested foreign nationals that were teaching English on a tourist visa, which is illegal. But yeah, Korea is ramping up their efforts in overstays, getting those people taken care of. And again, they're like, hey, you overstayed your visa and now you got to go. I totally support that 100%, regardless of the country. If you can't play by the rules, then yeah, go back home. But again, the deals that have been made, there needs to be some concessions and there needs to be some flexibility. But other countries what they're ended up doing is they're cracking down on their immigration policies as well, because there's a lot of people that were retiring in foreign countries, using tourist visas, doing border runs. In other words, they would be in a country, then they go over to a neighboring country for a day and then come back and then get another 90 days, extension or whatever, which is as a tourist. No, you're using that loophole to stay in the country and retire in that country. But a lot of countries are, like I said months ago, you're going to see more of this, and exactly this is what's happening. So, Sultan ends up saying, we should get our F5 next March. If the world still exists then, that is, we're on an investor F2 visa. Please stick around, world. Oh yeah, the world's going to be here for a long time. It'll outlive everybody. It's billions of years old. So I don't think you can't destroy the planet. People might be stupid and kill themselves off, but the planet will still be here. Rest assured. It will be here. Whether we're here or not, we're just a little speck on this planet, and it is what it is. But the F513 visa, I talked to a gentleman who got that, who is also a patron of the channel. He was talking about it took 9 months for him to get his F513 approved, and I'm not sure why it takes that long. You submit the paperwork, background check, FBI background check, fingerprints, application fee, taxes, this, that, proof of income and funds for 2 times the GNI, and you have it recapitulated on a sheet that should be translated be in English and in Korean. So, Sultan, if you do that, whatever documents you put and submit that are in English, have them translated into Korean, and it'll make that process so much easier for them. They'll appreciate that. When we did our F4 and F1 visa, we had a proof of funds, of income, and so on and so forth, and bank accounts, all of that. Of course, we had that in English, and so I just put it into Microsoft Word, had it auto-translated into Korean. So they're like, hey, the immigration clerk was like, here's the paperwork, and she noticed it was thick, and she, well, what's all this? And she's looking through it. Oh, so you have it in English, and then you have it translated in Korean. Oh, that's so nice. This will make this so easy to do that. And yeah, do that. The worst thing they can say is, we don't need this, and they throw it away. But if it helps, and again, the recapitulation sheet that I did, which was kind of a summary sheet of, here's my banking info, this is how much that it shows for the last year or 2 years or whatever it was. Here's our income tax, and it gave, the amounts, and then here's my pensions and stuff, and this is how much I get from this. So it was like a a summary sheet that they could look at that and just try to make it easier for them. I had it in English and in Korean. So think about that. At least the immigration lawyer that we had said that's a really good idea to try to make it and be helpful for the immigration office. So, but yeah, I'm still kind of on track of getting the F5 visa. I just need a little bit more, few more nickels and dimes to be able to get that. But I think when we get our purchase the next apartment, and then with me getting Social Security at 62, I will be able to meet that requirement. MLoveMo says, in the U.S., the problem is H-1B visa abuse by outsourcing firms and leading to wage depression and displacement of U.S. workers. But like in the articles that we showed, I don't know if you were here for those articles, the Korean articles, and breaking down and saying if you have a manufacturing plant, like Hyundai and LG make a manufacturing plant from the ground up, you have to have your own subject matter experts and people with PhDs and workers and all of this stuff, electricians and so on and so forth, that are, professionals in this area. You can't just grab Joe electrician from Bob's electrician shop down the street, when you're working with these things. So you have to have these specialized subject matter experts to set up and build the plant, and then those same subject matter experts need to train the future employees of U.S. citizens who are going to be working in those plants. So, but with that said, you said there is H-1B visa abuse by outsourcing firms and leading to wage depression and displacement of U.S. workers, but not in this case. So with the Hyundai LG EV battery plant, that they have that plant, and there's like a couple others, it ends up, that's not the situation that we have here, because once that plant is up and running and once they train the employees, boom, it's basically handed over. And then of course you're going to have your real E1, E2 work visas, people from Korea who are going to stay there and be supervisors and live in the United States, with the appropriate visas and so on and so forth. But it just wasn't a good thing, what happened with this. MLoveMo says, H-1B visa workers in the U.S. are sponsored by the employer for a green card. Those workers dare not switch jobs and are handcuffed to the employer. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Just like, for example, here in Korea, if you get a job teaching English and you have the appropriate visa and you go into some other job, there's a different visa that you would have to get. Then it says, in contrast, H-1B visa workers in the U.S. also are sponsored by the employer for a green card. Those workers dare not switch jobs and are handcuffed to the employer. Isn't that what you just said, I think? But that's kind of how it goes. There's different, even here in Korea, there's different work visas for different positions and different types of sector jobs that you have. So, one is teaching English, another one could be like engineering or specialty jobs, professions and things like that. So there's different visas, but yeah, I totally agree that, the whole thing is that if you make a special deal and where Korea is investing billions and billions of dollars in a U.S. manufacturing plant, you need to have a special visa so they can get that plant up and running, so they can train U.S. citizens or whoever it is. If they go to some other country and do the same thing, there should be a special visa that is easy to get, quick to issue, so they can get this deal done. So it's beneficial to the United States and Korea, because that's the whole deal there. But when it's not working, they're losing $4 to $7 million a day, and that's not good for anybody. But yeah, I totally agree. I think it's the U.S. government screwed over Korea in this, and the clueless Karen that called it in has no clue as to what she's talking about. She ended up, according to Terry, is that they're working here without the correct visa, and it's like, they're jobs that should be for American citizens, and it's like the normal American citizen can't do those jobs because they don't have engineering degrees, they don't have PhDs, and they don't know how to build this specific manufacturing plant. you just put 8,500 jobs on hold with another 40,000 jobs, indirect jobs, on hold as well. So yeah, monumentally stupid for clueless Karen who called this in. So this is something that should have been caught a while ago. But again, like we said, this happened in a previous administration. We see it in this administration. Hell, we've seen it in 2 or 3 administrations ago, of where there's visa problems, and nobody has just really jumped on it and said, hey, let's fix this and make it work for everybody. Hopefully this will get fixed. So, but yeah, there's always going to be abuse of the system. Somewhere, somehow, tourists teaching English, tourists go to a country as a tourist, but they do border runs, so they essentially try to retire there and skirt, because some countries don't have retirement visas, but they abuse the tourist visa to stay in as long as they can, doing border runs. Say you got 90 days in a country on a tourist visa, and then it's like, well, I want to live and retire here, but they don't have a retirement visa, so I'm going to hop the border, go to another country, come back, boom, get another stamp on my visa. I can stay another 90 days, and they'll just lather, rinse, and repeat so that they can stay for years and years and years. And I remember I made a video talking about this, how Thailand was going to crack down on immigration, and Philippines and so on and so forth, other countries. And people are like, no, Thailand has been, that's like the retirement haven. They would never crack down on that. And it's like, and sure enough, they are. So, and here in Korea, they're doing that as well. There's abusing that system of the tourist visa to stay here longer and essentially, work under the table or try to retire here in Korea. They're closing up the loopholes, and many other countries are as well. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing. With that being said, we're heading to Vietnam Monday. We're going to Vietnam. We're going to go to Hanoi for a few days on a tourist visa. We're not going to try to skirt the system or retire there. This is just a vacation. So we're going to go to Hanoi for 2 or 3 days, and then we're going to go to Sapa. We're going to take the train, the night train, sleeping car train, 8 or 9 hours to get to Sapa. And then once we get to Sapa, really, really beautiful. Looks really nice. Great coffee. Love coffee. And then we're going to go to Fansipan, which is the highest peak in Indonesia, which is like 3,143 meters high, which is just over 10,000 feet. So yeah, might get a little altitude sickness on that, but that's going to be a fun little trip. So we're doing that. We'll be back around the 25th-ish, I think the 25th. So we're going to take some time off for us. We'll do some videos and see if we can live stream some stuff and show you the sites. Definitely be taking video and then little video clips, and then when I get back, I'll edit those in together and kind of show you our trip that we ended up having. So that's in the plan. And then the other thing we're looking at, talking about retirement destinations, we're looking at going to the Philippines and applying for the SRRV courtesy visa as a backup plan to being retired here in Korea. I'm former military. You always got to have, you got a plan, but then you always got to have a backup plan. So my thinking is, if something bad happens here in Korea, let's say hostilities, North Korea attacks, whatever it is, natural disaster, and we have to leave, I would rather have the SRRB courtesy visa for the Philippines and be able to go there. And because let's say it's a natural disaster, whatever it is, and a bunch of people like me and my wife, retirees, have to leave Korea, then what we'll end up doing is we go to the Philippines, and let's say you got a ton of people that are coming in, and they're like, suddenly the Philippines is overwhelmed, and they're like, people who don't have the visa, they can say, nope, we're not accepting anybody else. But if I already have my approved SRRB courtesy visa, we'll be able to get in. So that's kind of the thinking behind that, is to get that SRRB visa in a worst case scenario. And then ultimately, if we get older and we become infirmed, we need assisted living. Assisted living care in the Philippines is way cheaper than the United States and way cheaper than Korea. So that's another thing that we're looking at is eventually if we get old, I mean, I'm old, I'm 59, but when we get old, and infirmed and we need assisted living care, the Philippines has some good facilities and it's inexpensive. So that's kind of the mentality and the thinking behind that. So that's the stuff that we got going on. Terry pops up and says, "I'll send you the Karen video." Yes, absolutely. I would like to see that video. I can already picture Karen, clueless Karen, in my mind. And I bet you she's a little bit overweight. I bet you she's got kind of a, hair is cut like to here, and she's kind of full of herself and thinking that, what she did was, saving jobs for America because look at all these foreigners that are working here on the wrong visa. It's like, yeah, you just screwed the pooch on that. I've got a picture comes to my mind of what she looks like. So it'll be interesting to see if that's true. So yeah, definitely, Terry, send me the video. Send me the video. With that, I think we're going to end up closing this out. I don't think I have any other information besides the upcoming trip. What do we got there? No. We covered all of that. Some good stuff. That's all we got for today. Like I said, today is Sunday already, and we're leaving tomorrow morning, bright and early, so there's that. And then we got some people who are going to be watching our place for the time that we're in Vietnam. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And keep our ear to the ground, not on vacation in regards to, we're just going to be on vacation. So I'm not going to be like scouring the Korean news and, what's happening in Korea with the visas and are they kicking out people, English teachers or, whatever. We're just going to be on vacation. We're going to enjoy ourselves and have fun and not think about all this stress. So yeah, that's what it is. So with that, thank you for watching, everybody. I really appreciate that. And I like having these discussions. I like interacting with different people from around the world, the United States, Korea, and all over the place. It's really kind of a good thing. We got a couple, Love Mo. Thanks for joining the channel. I really appreciate that. And of course, George and Terry and Sultan, and usually we have therapists pops in every now and then. Some other people that will show up, but yeah, I really appreciate it. So if you got comments or questions, suggestions, you can always check that out. With that, as you can see here, here's my email address. Shoot me an email. Probably won't answer while I'm on vacation, but after that, I 100% answer my emails, so do that. Buy me coffee. These people over here buy me coffee. Cool if you do. If you don't, the best thing that you can end up doing is liking the channel, subscribing. That would be the best thing. So don't even worry about the coffee. Don't worry about the coffee. Just like and subscribe to the channel. That would help immensely. And again, the YouTube channel thing is just a hobby thing that I do. And yeah, got something to do besides going to the gym and 3D printing and whatever else. It's just something to do. Okay. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Take care, and we will see you all in the next video. Peace.